Hi there, welcome to the video and hello again to return viewers. Today you find me on the 5th of January 2026, about to record a couple of reviews of the books I've been reading during my annual leave. I just thought I'd like to get these out of the way before the old routine starts again and work becomes all important. So we'll just take a cup of coffee here. Okay, so the first review I'm doing today is this one. Slow Gods by Claire North. Now Claire North is an author that I have followed for a little while, but I haven't actually until now actually read any of her books. I have two copies of her book, 15 Lives of Harry August. One I bought myself and one that was sent to me in this sort of book club thing. I also have another book of hers, something like IK84 or something. I have no idea what that one's even about. I bought it at a library sale a couple of years ago. Anyway, Slow Gods is her foray into maybe hard sci-fi or space opera, we could narrow it down to. When I started reading this a couple of weeks ago, I was initially dismayed that it seemed a little cookie cutter space opera, like the modern space opera type thing we've been having for the last 10, 15, 20 years maybe. Some similar ideas to Adrian Tchaikovsky's recent big screen space opera effort, so that put me off initially, but very soon the differences began to show, and there's a lot that Claire North is saying in this book. It's lots of allegories, lots of shining the light on our modern situation, condition, whatever, by looking at a futuristic version of it, basically. So what's it about? So basically, and let me try and pronounce this name correctly, it's the tale of Morkana na Venezi, or Moore as he is called for short in the book. Now, this book is the actual time frame when it's set is not actually discussed, so it could be in the very far future, it could be another universe, a parallel universe, whatever. Earth or anything we know really does not kind of go into the story. It's the story of Moore and the events involving a supernova and how things intersect to make things even worse or better, depending on your point of view. Does that make any sense? Probably not. So anyway, so Moore is from a planet in the Shine, which is apparently human culture. It's part of the Accord. The Accord is like, I guess if we use Star Trek equivalent, Accord is like the Federation, and takes in many human and non-human cultures and races. And the Shine seems to be the preeminent human culture, and the Shine are a bunch of hyper-capitalists, very nasty, evil, focused, militaristic people. Obviously, you're not supposed to like them in the story, and so the Shine are kind of divided into ventures, which are like companies, and the only value that people have in each of these ventures is for their value as workers, and the achievements in life are basically displayed in the form of scars on their bodies, their faces, their heads, their backs, their necks, whatever. If you've done something in life or achieved something or whatever, you are scarred as a result. And they have a form of indentured slavery. They call it debt. If something goes wrong in your life, you fail, you lose money or whatever, you become sold to somebody to work off your debt in a job. And so in this situation is Moore, a young man who is, I believe at the beginning of the story, some type of space or air traffic controller, whatever you want to do. Okay, into this situation comes something called the Slow, which is a massive entity that travels through space, which is some sort of artificial intelligence. Not until quite near the end do we get much of a grasp of what the Slow is, but it's revered and feared and listened to by all members of the Accord. And the Slow basically pronounces that two binary stars nearby the Accord populated planets are going to collide with each other and create a supernova which will wipe out all life in, I think, 21 light years radius. Okay, so the Shine basically try and clamp down on this information and not alarm their citizens, or not create trouble with their citizens. They kind of suppress it. When people try to talk about it in the media, they're disappeared. The media's stomped on, and it becomes like an underground thing, and the various oppressed peoples of the Shine take it as a cause, as a rallying point, and they call themselves unionists, and they protest against the suppression of the news about the supernova and their working conditions, their life conditions, and it becomes this sort of uprising. And the main character Morgan gets caught up in this, and because he comes from one of the districts which involved in one of these uprisings, he gets arrested along with everyone else there and sent into debt slavery. That's the short version of it anyway. And part of his debt slavery, he basically becomes a pilot. Now, pilots in this universe, basically, some of them only fly once. These pilots that go in the faster than light, I think they call it arc flight or something in this book, and it's basically some type of interstitial realm or hyperspace, or what do you want to call it, between real space and the other real space you want to get to travel faster than light. And it requires an interface between the ship and a human brain to fly into hyperspace. Now, this is the stuff which was starting to sound very similar to other space operas recently, all the way back to, I don't know, Alistair Reynolds and all that type of thing. So I was going, we've been here before, but something was different about this one, and it kept me reading. And basically something goes wrong with one of his first flights into the dark, as they call it, and his ship that he's in is recovered with everyone else on board dead except for him. And it turns out that he is actually dead, but a combination of his treatment and the mysterious entities that lurk in the dark basically make him a sort of an immortal being which can't be killed. And then from then on, he's basically used as like a special purpose tool by one of the cultures in the US. I think there's a culture called the Z, which seemed to be perhaps some type of inscrutable Asian analog or something. Basically give Moore a home on a small island on their planet, and when they need him to fly missions for them, they come and visit him, and off he goes. And there is another race in this storyline called the Quan, QAN, who are basically artificial intelligences which have mainframes where they're based, and they're software beings, but they build bodies to interact with other beings, and various versions of them in the story are either like a featureless sphere or a little fuzzy toy animal, and they're all packing deadly weapons and dangerous stuff. And there are other races, we encounter them on the way, and some are mentioned as aside, some are more detailed. And the thing that I've seen a lot of reviewers complain about this, and I didn't enjoy it particularly myself, is all the different races and cultures in this story have different pronouns. Some have multiple genders, some have pronouns with various different things, and the author basically puts us through so many different pronouns that sometimes it is a little difficult to read. I don't see that as a major hassle, because it starts to become part of the story for you. You experience it, it's part of the immersion. But when you're trying to read something rapidly and you come across whatever in an otherwise English sentence, it is a little tricky. I know what the author was trying to show us there's an infinite variety of genders and lives and whatever out there, but it just didn't make best reading experience. Anyway, Moore is sent on a mission to one of the planets that's going to be affected by this supernova event in the future, called Adjumuri, I believe, or Adjumur. And there he falls in love with one of the locals, and events spiral out from there. I won't spoil too much, but in the end we learn a lot about the various different cultures, their attitudes, and I think the messages in this book is that basically It's an allegory for climate change, the supernova. The various factions of the Accord want to ignore it. Some want to help and prepare for the futures. Others want to ignore it. And it's one of those things that can't be ignored. And we have the variety of cultures, the differences between the various cultures, their attitudes, their attitudes to life, and the things. And so more basically is our way of exploring these things. I know this doesn't sound great for a science fiction novel, but the imagination is there. Cybernetic beings, we have space combat, we have espionage, we have aliens and robots and living ships. One of the spacecraft you use, the Emny, is a kind of like a living ship with all sorts of things like algae and plants growing it and wooden sections. It's alive, and then when she leaves it for months and years at a time, comes back and sees that it's been blooming or it's in its winter phase. It's all very fascinating. It's interesting stuff. I know the component parts of this book may not sound interesting, but put together, Cleanoff has pulled off something quite amazing. It's entertaining. Like I said, I was reading this piecemeal, and then yesterday I just got into it really hard and fast, and I read the whole rest of the book, and I really enjoyed it. It was quite an experience. It's an immersive experience. Moore himself is a fascinating character, not quite human after the initial parts of the book. He, when things get dark, he can strike out and take terrible revenge on the people who are against him or his friends. For some reason you cheer him on, but you realise you're not supposed to cheering him on when in the violence part. This is not a book which celebrates violence, but there's an awful lot of, there's a lot to think about in this book. There's a lot of allegory. It's basically a criticism of maybe the world, maybe something like the United Nations equivalent to the Accord, and its attitude to climate change, or its member states' varying attitudes, how they won't get together for a common good. And I think the Shine is really an equivalent of maybe the United States or just the West in general. It's hyper-capitalist ways are paramount about any type of concern for its citizens or the world. So anyway, what I'm saying is Slow God is worth a read. It is, if you want a hard science fiction fix with all sorts of allegories and similes and whatever you want to say about it, it's a science fiction fix which shines the spotlight on modern society. So that is really good. It's really interesting, and it'll keep you interested. The pronouns thing is an issue. It takes you out of it initially, but you get used to it. So anyway, I am recommending Slow Gods by Claire North. Definitely one to read if you're into science fiction in any small way. Okay, back to